I'm listening to an audiobook called The Assault on Truth about Freud and the early days of psychoanalysis and how everything transpired. It seems like in the early days, Freud basically discovered something monumental and shared it with the world at a talk. When he was done, it was met with like silence. And then after the silence came the disgust, distancing themselves, criticisms, wanting no part of anything that he had talked about. Just completely, they disavowed themselves of what he was saying he discovered. And what did he discover? What were they so disgusted with? He said he figured out that all these neuroses, that all these patients, these are his peers he's talking to, and they all got patients with outlandish stories of abuse and traumas, and what he was saying he discovered was that through all of his psychoanalysis, the stories can very heavily be relied upon as accurate information that explain the symptoms all these people have. So he just said that it's safe to believe our patients when they say they were raped by their dad or their uncle or brother or whatever it was, and that's why they have these neurotic symptoms of various kinds. And his peers were like, ghastly, disgusting, I can't believe anyone would speak this stuff in public, it's ridiculous. Like, sure, maybe it happens every now and then, but we all know that these women are hysterical and making all this stuff up. And it's insane. It's outrageous. It's unbelievable that this is how it went down. And to show how mighty and strong the herd mentality can be, this is how I'm taking it. Freud is like, wait, what? I just, it's not like I just stood up here and, shot from the hip on this. I got data. I mean, I'm Freud, and he wasn't really, it's kind of before Freud was Freud, really, but he became Freud, and he backed up everything he was saying. So he was shocked that people were like putting him on the outskirts of, psychology society. And over time, with enough of that ignoring, invalidating, criticism and everything, wouldn't you know it, he finally came around to disavowing his own discovery. And he would say things like, well, I was a little over my skis on that one, and pulled back and said, yeah, clearly all these neuroses and all these patients are fantasies. I mean, it's much more likely that all these women just can't help fantasizing about being abused by their dad or brother or uncle. I can't even believe I'm saying this. I can't believe this is actually what happened. It's unbelievable that it would take like 100+ years to get to a point where that sounds insane. I mean, you can see how, women today complain about the patriarchy in various ways. That's nuts. I don't know if there's anything more aggravating and frustrating than to be invalidated, ignored, and not taken seriously when something bad has happened to you. And first of all, it's got to be super scary, especially back then when you have no power, but to come clean and tell, a psychologist, your analyst, a crazy, insane, scary, horrifying secret. I'm sure scared for your life probably, and then to have them say, well, we know you're making that up, you just wish that would happen. I mean, this is just beyond sick. It's amazing. So the book would go on to say that No, he didn't 100% let go of his theory called seduction theory, which seems like a weird name. It's what he presented to the world that was so ignored. Later on, when Freud would get a lot older, somebody else would come along and kind of dig back through and pick up his original discoveries that made so much sense and bring them back to the forefront. And the same thing happened to him, I do believe. I think he was ostracized and died, unappreciated. But now, this all just sounds like common sense to an unhealthy extreme, where you can't even ask questions. Like if someone accuses a guy of something, like sit down, friend. We've got some history here. You don't get to speak. The ladies are talking, and they say that you did X, Y, and Z. You did X, Y, and Z. That's not right either, obviously. And no one's advocating. Well, some people, they want to silence people. But anyway, that's not the point. Basically, what he was saying was all these psychological symptoms, these negative psychological symptoms that these patients had, can be traced back to extremely unhealthy relationships, and they were largely, if not all, of a sexual nature before the age of 4. I think someone who's a supporter of this said that virtually all neurotic symptoms can be traced back to some kind of trauma that occurred before the age of 4. And so it doesn't have to be sexual. It could be all kinds of things. It could be like bipolar violence and then immediate kindness, or all the gaslighting that could be done to a person. Like a parent could beat you up, and then you could just be like letting loose in your room, screaming and frustration and fear and terror and pain and physical pain and everything, and just wanting to kill the parent. And then all of a sudden they come in and you're terrified all over again. You never even got over it. And there they are, and now what are they doing? Apologizing. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't lose my temper like that. You're going to be mad at me all day now? Like that kind of stuff? That just makes a kid crazy. And so if a kid can remember things like that, imagine what kind of things likely they had to endure as an infant, a baby, toddler. Those are the kind of parents that would be like, just shut the door and let them cry it out. They just need to get over it. They just need to cry it out, and then they'll be fine. Really? Or their brain might be thinking that they've been abandoned, and it's freaking out, and hardwiring panic and terror and fear into the neurological development of that baby's brain. And they have to carry that with them into the rest of their life, and things will happen to them, and all of a sudden that kind of response will come to the forefront, and it's not appropriate. It's not that extreme, but because you were such an idiot and you thought it was a good idea to leave a screaming, hysterical baby alone to cry it out in the next room, rather than picking up a scared baby, your baby, by the way, your offspring, you made it, rather than going in there, picking it up and comforting it and making it feel safe, you're just going to let it cry it out. I mean, these parents suck. And how many kids, lives have been ruined by just trash behavior. And imagine the influence that the psychology realm, has done on society with all this being considered. Imagine the mind games that have been played, since the late 1800s up until now based on all of this. I mean, you should hear the quotes, from Freud's peers and stuff, like, it's so smug and so, well, now, let's not be too rash here. We all know women have a tendency toward hysteria, and sure, we also know that for some reason, children before the age of puberty tend to fantasize about, it's insane. How did they come up? It's amazing that became like standard thinking. And I don't know, I'm gonna wrap this up. I just wanted to do something. I haven't done anything for a long time. And on a final note, I just came out of the grocery store, and some guy wearing a big old cross, and he helped me out. And then when I went to leave, he said, "God bless." And I just thought, well, that's nice. I would think some people would probably, maybe see the cross, hear him say God bless, and just be like, idiot. But you don't have to be like that. You could just be like, well, that's a nice thought. Yeah. Wishing good on somebody. It's not complicated. It's pretty simple. What's complicated is what the psychology world did with Freud's black and white, very simple, easy to understand, quote unquote, discovery called believing the abuse stories. He proved all the correlations, the cause and effect of all these things, and then it was just discounted and pushed aside. It's enough to make you think maybe there was a conspiracy behind it, because we're the people, we're the elites. I mean, was something going to be exposed in elite society? Be a good person.